Welcome to Daps Magic Live. I am Mr. Daps, and we are excited to talk tonight about some changes that happened at the Disney Parks experiences and products. I got to get used to that still. And I am joined tonight by Katie, who is, 6 blocks away, something like that. But this is the definition of social distancing is we're close, but really for not 6 feet. We are 6 blocks away instead.
I was going to say, I think we're maybe a mile away.
Okay. I like 6 blocks better. That sounds better.
6 blocks is better.
Today has been an absolutely fantastic day for those of us that follow Disney news because it's funny how these things happen because it starts with a trickle and then suddenly it's just like, and it started today as we learned that Kevin Mayer had resigned from the Walt Disney Company, and he's the guy that's behind Disney Plus and streaming and all of that stuff. And he went over to a little company that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, and that is called TikTok. And this was fascinating to me because, one, I feel like you've got this massive company that's the Walt Disney Company, and TikTok is a very trendy, fun company right now. But it seemed like a very interesting move as we were thinking. And as we're looking at this, so Katie, what did you think of Kevin Mayer taking head of all of streaming and all that fun stuff at Disney and hopping over to TikTok, which
I think whoever's doing the recruiting at TikTok is a genius. I think that it was a great move. They got someone who is extremely talented, who very much knows what they're doing. I think that going to TikTok was a horrible decision. I think that everyone thinks that every platform is going to be the next Twitter, the next Facebook.
You don't think it's going to be the next Twitter or the next Facebook?
No, because frankly, this is Vine 2.0. Vine was very popular, but it didn't reach mass of the population. And it went away because Twitter bought it. And I'm also thinking very specifically about Quibi right now, because Quibi isn't
going anywhere.
No, and they're blaming quarantine for horrible numbers. They have 1 million active users.
Which really, this is when it should be doing its best, is because everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah, and they poured $1 billion into marketing, and they have 1 million active users every day, which is not a good ROI at all. But I think that it's going to be a lot like that, where it's a video platform, but Quibi actually has more going for it because Quibi actually has like Anna Kendrick, and they're doing the Reno 911 reboot there, and they're doing all these things. As where TikTok is just everyone.
But it's not taking off anyway.
No, but TikTok is fun, but I just don't think that it is a nationally recognized company like Disney is.
Well, internationally recognized company, really, but it is owned by a Chinese company, and it is a subsidiary of that. And Kevin Mayer is now, I'm forgetting the name of it, but he is now the COO of that company as well. So it's not just being CEO of TikTok. Yes. He also gets to run this other company, which I find interesting. But I think it's an interesting choice for him. Part of the thing I have to wonder with this is if he had reached his peak at Disney and really wanted to be the top guy as opposed to always number 3 or whatever, Disney streaming would be for him. And I have to wonder if he really was always loyal to Bob Iger. And when Bob Iger has now moved on from CEO and is executive chairman, if maybe it was one of those things like, well, I thought I was going to be the next Bob Iger. And he was, I think, in the running for CEO. Didn't get CEO. Doesn't have anywhere to go really at Disney anymore. Like, he's peaked out from what I can tell. Maybe it was one of those things where it's just like, all right, well, I'm going to go find somewhere where I can actually move up in the company still. But still a very interesting choice, because I do agree 100%. I don't know that. I mean, to me, the real interesting thing with TikTok is going to be once people go back to work, go back to life, go back to school, all this stuff, go back to Disney, what will happen with that? Will people no longer be interested in it, or will there be that much more to make videos with, whether in the parks or wherever it is they are. And so it might grow as well. And part of that will be what he does with this. Mike said that he feels TikToks will be a lot like Quibbly, just like you said. Bailey says 100% Quibbly failed in telling people what they are. Ask anyone what Quibbly is prior to the news breaking, and no one knew what it is. I honestly can tell you I have a rudimentary idea of what it is, and I can still tell you I don't really care what it is, which is probably worse than not knowing.
Well, and I think I don't want to pick on you, but I think that what says the most about their branding is that you just mispronounced their name 3 different times.
Yeah, I have no clue.
The basic of branding should be, this is what our name is. And
they have a weird name too, and that's a problem.
It's such a weird name, dude. But I feel like if you're
what is it for real?
Quibi.
Quibi? Like cribbage?
What?
I don't know. I just don't get it, but keep going.
But I think that if you're putting that much money into something like this, people should at least recognize what the brand is. But I think TikTok...
the funny thing is I've seen advertisements on TV for it, and I'm still messing it up.
Ugh, that's
proving your point 100%.
Yeah. No, I just think that there's something to be said for a lot of these apps. And I'm thinking specifically about Pokemon Go. Someone said this is the opposite of Pokemon. I can say
that one.
You can't. I'm very proud of you. But someone said this is the opposite of Pokemon Go Summer, because Pokemon Go Summer was when like everyone was out running around and causing a ruckus. But
Cameron was obsessed.
I mean, I had friends that I was going out to the beach with, and we were going and eating ice cream, and we would go Pokemon hunting at the pier in Seal Beach. That's the thing we did.
Whatever floats your boat.
Hey, there was a gym down there. But everyone thought that summer that Pokemon Go was going nowhere. Like that was the app. Like everyone was doing it. Everyone you passed on the street was like out.
It was everywhere. You'd see the big groups of people going to
and then a couple months later it was gone.
Yep.
And I still know some people that play Pokemon Go, but it's not the same where it was every single person.
A couple articles for Knott's and for Disneyland playing it, and those were doing ridiculously well on the site for probably 6 months tops. And now I can't tell you the last time it even made a dent in our daily traffic. So I think you're totally right.
And so I think it's just the same thing with a lot of these apps, is they're kind of aimed at a younger generation. And the problem when you aim at a younger generation is that you're going to constantly be trying to market to the next younger generation.
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean, TikTok is fun. It's cute. I mainly watch videos on other platforms that I think that's also the issue. I mainly watch TikToks like on Twitter.
I was going to say all the TikToks I've seen are either on Twitter or Insta stories.
Yeah. We watch them on other platforms.
Yep. I don't have the app.
I mean, I do.
Okay. Not
proud of that. But thanks.
You're welcome.
You're such a jerk. But I feel like that's where most people consume TikToks, is through other social media platforms, which to me doesn't say anything great about the strength of that.
There's no reason for you to go over there. That totally makes sense. And I do think there's an element to this too that we haven't hit yet. And it's not even, I mean, obviously Kevin Myers probably reached his top level of where he can go at the Walt Disney Company. But the other flip side of that is Bob Chapek is now starting to assert his leadership in putting his team together at the Disney Company. And part of that is the promotion of Josh D'Amaro, who I think anybody who's met him and spent any time talking to him really hoped that someday he would end up chairman of Disney Parks Experiences and Products. And today that hope came true. And I don't know that we ever thought that it would happen this quickly. I mean, he's only been gone from Disneyland, 6 months? Something like that.
That's what I was talking about. I think it's been 6 months.
Yeah, but not very long at all. And when he was at Disneyland, it was very fun because he was very accessible, and you'd bump into him in the parks all the time and at press events. And he was a leader that was always interested in the person standing right in front of him, and which is, I think, why he's getting so much traction in the social media world today, is because it didn't take long for you to realize that Josh D'Amaro really cares about people and really likes people, and that's one of his go buttons, big go buttons, and so now he's head of Disney Parks Experiences and Products, which means he's going to be overseeing all of the parks, and I think that's just a fantastic thing. I'm excited to see how he puts his stamp on the Disney parks, and it's interesting that it's happening during this time, because I feel like he's probably going to have a slower start than maybe Bob Chapek came in when they're already working on, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and like there was a lot of big things already happening when Chapek took over Disney Parks, those parks and resorts then. But what are your thoughts now on Josh D'Amaro now running Disney Parks Experiences and Products? And I said it right like 4 times now.
I'm so proud of you.
That's really hard.
I am so thrilled. This is when Bob Chapek left his position, I think all of us said that we wanted Josh. Like that was our big thing.
He didn't seem experienced enough, though. It was kind of the concern.
That's what we all said. We said he only has 2 resorts under his belt. He was at Disneyland Resort for 1.5 years, I think. And we're like, he just got Walt Disney World Resort. There's no way that they would put him as the head of Parks Experiences and Products like that. There's no way. I'm very pleasantly surprised. He understands Disney in a way that is very different than a lot of leadership, because I feel like a lot of times with leadership, you understand business or you understand branding and core values, but it's not very often where you see someone who very much lives the fundamentals of both of those things. And one of the greatest things about Josh D'Amaro is that, yes, he understands how to make a business run and how to make a business be successful, but he understands Disney magic better than anybody. And I think that was one of the coolest things about seeing him in the parks at Disneyland all the time, was that he wanted to see what guests saw. He wanted to see the Disneyland experience, and he wanted to see how he could make the show better.
And I'm personally excited for him to be back on the West Coast, because I think we'll probably see him in the parks again.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because he started his career in 1998 at the Disneyland Resort. And you can tell, like, he kind of has that whatever. I mean, there's some. I don't want to say simplicity, but he's got this really down to earth connection as he's talking to you. But he's also held some really big roles within the company. So he was a senior vice president of commercial strategy for Walt Disney World. I think he was the vice president of Disney's Animal Kingdom during their biggest growth. So that's Pandora and stuff like that. He also, it turns out, led the resort's transportation operations for Walt Disney World as well. And he's held lots of different leadership roles, including sales and travel operations at Hong Kong Disneyland Resort, finance for global licensing for Disney consumer products. And then he also was business planning and strategy development for the Disneyland Resort. He's been all over the place. So I feel like he's gotten to see both sides of the coin, kind of a thing, where he's worked front lines, and he's also gotten to see the real strategic and the long-term strategy and how Disney's going to be Disney moving forward, which I think is really exciting. And I think another exciting thing about him is his ability to boost morale of cast members.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes back to him really caring about people. And so I fully expect to see him in the parks, probably globally, if we're completely honest. I personally am super excited to see him at the next D23 Expo.
Yeah.
Like in, 2021? Like,
yes.
To me, the parks experiences and products section just became so much more exciting. Angela's saying here, Josh D'Amaro has shown he's all about leading from the trenches, seeing what's going on the ground level. Absolutely. And you saw that at Disneyland, and you also saw it in Florida. And Roger's also echoing what I just said of the presentation at D23 is going to be awesome. And but I think he has such a well-rounded grasp of what Disney is from its many different areas, because he's worked in so many different places. And I think that's really going to benefit Disney as a whole, but especially Disney Parks experiences and products, mainly because he's going to be able to strategize, and he's going to know innately what guests want, what they like, what the cast members want and like. But he's also going to be able to take into his decision making the numbers portion too. And it really is a balance, I think, in leadership, especially at the higher leadership, is you have to have that connection between knowing what people want from a spreadsheet, and also knowing what people want because, oh, I went and I talked to Mr. Daps on the monorail platform on the 60th anniversary of it. And there's a personal connection then, and a personal knowledge, and then also an intellectual. And I think he brings both of those. And to me, that's going to be a very exciting thing as he moves forward. And I don't have any predictions for what's actually going to happen. Like, I think the first sort of taste we're going to see for his leadership style is to see on that level is to see what he does with the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, which is next year, and where things are at due to this pandemic. I think a lot of things that we expected to see this year, we're not going to see till next year. I'm guessing something like Harmonious probably now will be pushed back. Like we expected to see it this year. It probably will not be done in time because they can't work. So my prediction is you'll see it sometime next year, maybe even right on the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. We'll see a bunch of new stuff. I think they're just going to have to change their strategy. So we're going to see all of this new leadership from Bob Chapek on down that have now been elevated really get to put their fingerprint on the Disney parks and everything else around it as well. And I'm ecstatic that he's the one that's going to be leading this. And, if you ever want an interview, Josh, especially once this social distancing is over, we got a full studio. We'd love to have you down, especially since you'll probably be back in California, and we're excited for that as well. Do you have any other thoughts on Josh D'Amaro?
I was going to say about how you were talking about, the 60th and the monorail platform. I think about that story all the time, how he's incredibly kind, and he also remembers people, and he cares a lot about guest experience. And I just like that he had no real reason to know Daps magic. I mean, yes, we are official Disney press, but there's a lot of official Disney press. And the fact that he remembered Daps magic, he remembered you and your bow tie, and he had very kind things
every time, whether it was Chalk Walk, whether it was whatever, he always came. What bow tie are you wearing today? Whatever.
And he always had something so kind to say, and that is going above and beyond. And that's not only being a wonderful executive and a wonderful face of the resort, but that's just being a nice person. And I think that's a really good thing for Disney to have more of.
I completely agree with you.
Thanks, no face, Paul. Just bow tie and hat.
It's just nothing else. just the bow tie and hat. He's like, I don't know anything about that, but
he's like, you're the bow tie guy.
Yeah, that's right.
That's you.
Exactly. But he wasn't the only change today. I think we'll sidestep a little bit. Rebecca Campbell has been the president of Disneyland for the last 6 months or so, and she's now basically taking over Kevin Meyer's position, which I think that's actually a really good fit for her. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a lot about her. She hasn't been here super long. I don't have a great read on her. Like, I've seen her, the closing night of Disneyland was probably the closest I've come to her personally, and she was very sweet that night. And like, I thought she was very kind that night to everybody, both cast members and guests that night. But my instinct with her is that she's really a strategy person, and she's probably somebody that's much better at making executive decisions as opposed to being like she had a different feel than Josh did. So Josh is a very people person, a very interactive type personality, and she felt a little bit more corporate, and I'm going to say numbers, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I actually think this is probably a much more comfortable role for her, just from my observation. And I think it's an area that she's going to really enjoy. And I personally think she's going to thrive in this role with streaming and Disney Plus and all of these things. Because I just my instinct just says this is a good fit for her. What do you think, Katie?
I think the exact same thing. I think that this is her ballpark. I think that what was she in?
I'm not sure the park was her ballpark.
No, but I also think that that's okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes
100%. Like, I don't think Josh D'Amaro would be comfortable running Disney Plus.
Oh no.
I mean, if he had to, I'm sure he'd be fine. But he just seems like he would rather be in the trenches, and she seems like she would rather be the one looking at things from a more numbers perspective, and how can we connect through people. This, like, she seems like a person that connects through people that way, as opposed to face in the way in the parks. It seemed different.
And I think that sometimes people see restructuring in this manner and they're like, oh, it's because they weren't fit to do it. And I think that sometimes if you're in a company long enough, it's good to see different aspects of the company. Disney, especially, is a very, very, very big company. You could stay in direct to consumer forever. You could stay in parks forever. And so it's very cool to see people move around and get a very cool bird's eye view of the whole company, because it's a bunch of cogs in a machine that works together. And it creates a lot of brand stability.
Well, I think she's going to be that much more effective now running all of the streaming services now that she's been in the parks. And I actually think she was fine in the parks. I think she had huge shoes to fill with Josh D'Amaro in front of her. And honestly, if she'd come after just about anybody else, I'd be like, oh, I love Rebecca Campbell.
Yeah.
But we really never got to know her. And I just always got this impression that I was like, you seem like somebody that's very creative, and I would expect to be pitching you TV shows or movies or something. And that seems like your ballpark, because you almost seem like you're too, I don't want to say he's too smart, but you're just wired that way, that's really your ballpark. Like, you should be going out and creating new things, not running something. And there's different ways of creating things, whether it's parks or TV shows or movies. And I just always kind of got that impression that maybe she was more comfortable with the technology component, which I'm just really curious and excited to see what she does at the streaming. And was it direct to consumer? That's the name I keep trying to find.
Direct to consumer.
But yeah, I think she's going to be really good. And I think one of the things that's going to be so great with this new structure for her is she kind of came up. I think she's worked with Bob Chapek for quite some time, and the direct to consumer really is going to be something that I feel like she already owns. She has a natural competency to that, and it'll be, I mean, competency is very, I mean, that's too low to say, but I really think Bob Chapek was very wise in putting her in this role. And I'm just curious to see what she does with it, and what kinds of things we see coming to Disney Plus, Hulu, ABC, ESPN, all of these different areas as they move things forward. Yeah, she was an executive, and I think it's a good fit for her. Another change that came, this one is a little bit different, but it'll be interesting, is we've got Jeff Vale. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's now president of Walt Disney World Resort. He's been around the company for about 30 years, and he's worked in multiple realms. So he's worked most recently with Disney Signature Experiences, and he's been all over the place. As I was looking earlier, he is going to continue to see facilities and operation services for Disney theme parks globally. So he's kind of both president of Walt Disney World Resort and also a little bit more. He's overseen the Disney Cruise Line. He's worked with Disney Vacation Club, Adventures by Disney, Golden Oak, Alani, and all things like that. But the thing as I was looking up his bio earlier, is the thing that really impresses me about him is everything he's done has been ridiculously quality and ridiculously personal. So you think of Adventures by Disney, and you think of how anybody who's done Adventures by Disney will tell you about how their guides knew all of the group by the time, like within minutes of meeting them, and how they knew like what people liked, what they didn't like. And it was a very quality, personal Disney magic experience. And you think of the same goes for people that have been on Disney Cruise Lines and all of these different places he's worked with. It's always come back to creating a very quality personal experience. And I think that's the future of theme park entertainment. And it makes sense to me that he would be the next executive to take over the Walt Disney World Resort, just because as they are moving into their 50th anniversary, they're up against more competition today than ever before. You know, Universal is growing leaps and bounds. SeaWorld is trying to do whatever SeaWorld is going to do and discover itself. Someday it will. Just build on the penguins, guys. If just more penguins, people will go. But it's more competitive now than ever before. And so they're really going to have to hone in on the Disney experience. What makes Disney unique? And so I think he's a good person to be thinking, or to be leading Walt Disney World into its 50th anniversary, and be thinking, how can we, coming out of a pandemic, create unique Disney experiences that are far superior to everybody else? And he seems, from what he's done in the past, whether it's cruise lines, Adventures by Disney, all of that stuff, it seems like he could have a unique perspective, and with his team come up with some ideas for how to create really personalized magical experiences that maybe aren't as massive as, say, a new attraction or a redone Spaceship Earth, which I just don't know if all of these things will be happening now, as they've had to cut back on budgets due to the pandemic. And so if you can't go large, you have to go personal. And so I'm hoping what we see is better experiences in the hotels, better experiences as you're going into the parks. I mean, even to the aspect, if we have social distancing teams, which it looks like we have for down Disney Springs, how can we make that a positive experience as opposed to a policing experience? And so I think he probably brings something to that could be very interesting. What do you think about him, Katie?
I think the most interesting thing is that he has done many, many big things before. Disney Cruise Line is huge. Adventures by Disney is huge. Walt Disney World is a beast.
Yep.
And something that big, something the size of a literal city in the United States.
Bigger than a lot of them.
Bigger than a lot of them, with more people than a lot of them, with more employees than some small towns have citizens. I think that it can be hard for Walt Disney World to keep up with the magic sometimes. And I'm not saying that as a personal thing. I'm just saying that they have lots and lots of things going on that property, and sometimes things can get missed. And so I think it's very important to have someone who has dealt with things on a very large scale, and can get in there with the details and make sure that every last bit is magical. I think that Walt Disney World also deals with the fact that it's not Disneyland. Some people say that's better, but Disneyland automatically has this quaint, nice little energy.
Small town. Yeah.
Small town. And if you talk to some purists, they'll say, well, it's the park where Walt walked. It is the best park. You can just feel it. You could smell a cobblestone, and you know that Walt Disney walked there.
Even though that wasn't there then.
Yeah. I wish that I wasn't quoting real things I've heard. But Walt Disney World does deal with that obstacle sometimes, where people are like, it's the bigger park. It doesn't feel as magical. And so I think that having someone who has dealt with things on such a grand scale, and someone who has that attention to detail, And like you were saying, I've had friends that have done Adventures by Disney or Disney Cruise Line, and they've raved about it. Especially cruise lines, they
Hmm.
can feel really uh, informal isn't the word, but they can just feel like you're one of 20,000 people on a boat, and here, go get in the buffet line.
Yep.
Um, so the fact that even on a cruise line they're delivering magic, I think it'll be great at Walt Disney World.
So we're getting asked if there's going to be hard ticketed, low attendance, high dollar events. I'm going to assume those are just going to continue on. They need to happen because Disney, as they recover from being closed for however long they're closed and lose all this money, they're going to have to recoup whatever they want moving forwards. I think we'll see more of those. I think we'll probably see the good ones continue on and be built off of, and the ones that aren't so successful, I would tend to guess, will go the way of the dodo bird. I actually would expect more tours, more unique experiences that you could be a part of that maybe are publicized, but maybe aren't publicized to everybody. You know, they're out there if you look for them, but maybe if you're a certain demographic, you start getting direct mail, or you get certain Facebook ads, or things like that encourage you to have this very unique Disney magic experience that they can build on. You know, whether that's a specific tour or it's a cruise in Florida, or, you know, whatever it is. I think there will be unique experiences that are allowed and offered moving forward even more. And I think what he'll do is he'll take the lessons he learned at Adventures by Disney, Disney Cruise Line, all of those things, and probably put them into his leadership at Walt Disney World Resort. And we'll probably see that in some of the new hotels that are being built, and some of those kinds of things as well, of different ways of having a Walt Disney World Resort hotel experience. I think that's a very natural way to build up on the Disney magical experience, because you could really, I mean, it's generally the first place people go when they get to Walt Disney World, and it could go even. It could go even further. That's a good question. You heard today that we can expect a 25% increase in prices. What are your thoughts on upcoming prices, higher or lower? Prices will always go higher. I don't know if it'll be 25% in the super near future, especially when you look at surveys from other companies talking about discounts for coming back. But it's really going to come down to supply and demand. If they open the gates, I mean, we'll probably see on Wednesday our first glimpse at what it's going to be like in the parks at a really small level. Is if Disney Springs opens on Wednesday, obviously it'll be busy then, but what will it look like on next Wednesday? If it's insanely busy every day for the next week, 2 weeks, months, that's going to say one thing. Or is it one of those things where all of the locals who want the to get that first glimpse and to be the first people in and get that experience of being back at the reopened Disney Springs at the Walt Disney World Resort? So that first day, I expect it to be busy. But what really will be indicative for everybody that's watching, and then also I'm assuming Disney executives that are watching, is what happens in the days and the weeks after that. Do they keep coming back every day, or does it become one of those things that it's growing, or is it decreasing? And I kind of think that's really going to be a big determining factor about what prices look like. Because if people don't go to the parks, that's when you start seeing kids stay free or dining plans. You get these really good deals. And so if I were making a prediction for prices, which I can't yet, I would be looking at what are the deals that Disney starts offering for next year. And we'll see that in the next couple of months. Is maybe as we get into the second half of the year, is what are the deals that Disney starts offering to bring people in for the 50th? And I'm going to assume, yes, prices will go up at some level, but I think we'll also see, depending on how busy or not busy it is, we'll see some incentives to show up at the Walt Disney World Resort or Disneyland as well. You are totally right, both of you guys. There are a ton of bloggers out there, and I'm actually not going to count them, because I'm just going to assume they're going to show up. And when stuff opens here, people that cover Disney news are gonna be there, and I think that's not really like that's a good pulse of like what the PR is going to be, but I don't know that it's actually a good pulse of what the general populace is going to be, because we are a very niche market when you think about it. Yeah, I know you would. Paul, I expect to fully see you on the first day things reopen here at the Disneyland Resort. And we'll be there. We'll socially distance, high five from 6 feet away, and and it'll be great. But it'll be interesting to see, though, beyond those of us that are covering it, what are the people that, it's a family vacation or a once in a year vacation, or maybe they've been saving up for multiple years. That to me is what's going to be really interesting, is what the general public does, not what the hardcore fans do. Angela has a question. She says, I'm wondering if exclusive hotel experiences like the Star Wars Hotel are going to die off or become the new normal. When quarantine hit, I would have said it's done, but now I'm not so sure. I think they're totally coming back. I think I actually saw that a permit was filed for the Star Wars Hotel in Florida, so that's still moving forward. It's right up Bob Chapek's alley. From what I understand, this is kind of one of his pet projects. So I am assuming you will see that one happen. If it's successful, which I think it probably will be, you'll see another version of it appear in one form or another. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's Marvel, who knows? But I would tend to guess you're going to see more experiences like that. And you might even see some of those kinds of things appear on the cruise lines and stuff too, where it's very niche and very expensive, and it's for that really, I've got a lot of extra cash to spend type guest, and that will be an interesting thing to see as that moves forward. All right, let's move on from Walt Disney World back to Disneyland, where Ken Potrock, I don't know. We will find out soon, Ken. We look forward to meeting you. He was formerly the president of consumer products, and he's been around the company for 25 years as well, and he'll be taking over leadership for the Disneyland Resort from Rebecca Campbell. And it'll be fun to see what he does. He's really been a person that it's interesting reading about him, because he seems to be the guy Disney sent into things that need to be reinvigorated. And I don't know that Disneyland necessarily needed to be reinvigorated, but he's that kind of a guy. He's worked with Disney Vacation Club. He's worked with Adventures by Disney as well. And he was part of the reimagining of Disney Springs, which I think is fantastic, because I hope they do the same for Downtown Disney even more. Like I just think the Downtown Disney we have today is better than it was, but I still think it has a ways to go. He also did rebranding and reworking of ESPN Wide World of Sports as well in Florida. And he just seems to be a guy that comes in and polishes things up and builds them and makes them more exciting and vibrant. What do you think, Katie, about our new Disneyland president?
I think that I'm sure he's wonderful, but I think that what's really going to count at Disneyland is how we see him interact with people. I think that morale is a very big thing at the Disneyland Resort. A lot of cast members were distraught when Josh D'Amaro left. They really didn't get a lot of time to get to know Rebecca. But I think that I'm sure that he can do many fantastic things. I also love the reimagining of Disney Springs. I think that Disney Springs has become a very fun place to be, even outside of Raglan Road, even though that's the only thing we do at Disney Springs. But
I will admit, the last time I went out there, I spent much more time at Disney Springs than probably any other trip. And it really has become, it's not quite a Disney theme park, obviously, but it is a fun place to go. And since the parks closed earlier there, it's fun to go on your night there.
Yeah, and that's it's got a very good vibe. It passes the vibe check to be hip and cool.
Okay.
Oh, I love when I say things you don't understand. It's kind of my favorite thing. Um, but Disney Springs went from being that place where World of Disney is and other things to being a place where people go and they enjoy. And I mean, there's a Gucci store there, I think. Like, people go there and they spend some money. It's just a cool place to be. But
Well, and you mentioned that really brings up a good point, is it's got a little bit of something for everyone, whether you want to spend a lot of money or you don't want to spend hardly any money. You can probably find something to do, whether you want to buy a churro and watch some of the free entertainment, or you want to go to a pub, or you want to spend some really big money on some really expensive things. I don't know.
yeah. And that's the other thing that I was thinking is I'm thinking of when we were there. Didn't World of Disney just get rebranded?
Mm-hmm.
We were there?
Redone. Yeah.
Yeah, redone, remodeled. But we were walking through there, and we walked outside. There was like this giant concert happening
Mm-hmm.
in Disney Springs, and much kind of like in the Downtown Disney live entertainment on that stage by formerly ESPN Zone, but taken up to like 10,000. Like there was, and I don't even know that it was a weekend night, but there was a ton of people there. Uh, some of them Disney Pass holders, some of them probably not, just there to have fun, eat some dinner, and enjoy live entertainment. And so I think that it's still bringing the Disney experience in a way that it's not necessarily a Disney theme park, but you can still enjoy.
Well, you know the real trick with that, don't you? At
What?
Disneyland? Parking.
Yes, we don't have Lime Garage or
No,
Orange.
we need those garages because as you were talking about, I'm like, yeah, tons of people go there. A lot of them are local, a lot of them are tourists. And if you were to really revitalize downtown Disney and make it whatever, promenade, whatever, you really do need to figure out the parking situation. And I feel like that just needs to happen everywhere at the Disneyland Resort. Is yes, we have the new Pixar parking lot, but it seems like they're still for Disney Springs, downtown Disney. There needs to be more parking,
Yeah.
and then with that, there needs to be more venues to go to. So something needs to replace ESPN. Something needs to replace the I just lost the name of it. That was the tropical place. Animals, lots of animals in the Rainforest Cafe. Thank you. But you need to have you need to have those instead of just glorified food trucks, and it needs to go to that next level. And those, there's a space for those, but they don't need to be replacing an entire restaurant. And I think that would make it that much more of a destination. Not that it necessarily needs to, but if you are staying on property, it's probably a nice thing to have. And then also for the locals as well. And I would just take it up that extra notch, and I think that'd be a great thing. And I think he's probably a guy that could have something, have some ideas for that. And one of the things is I was looking at his bio is he's always pushed entrepreneurship, and I think that's always a really good thing in business. And you can. It just got me wondering, like, what would people do if they were empowered to come up with new ideas and new innovative ways to do business at the Disneyland Resort? And yes, that means there's going to be things changed, and that's always a hard thing for Disney fans, but usually it's also for the better, and 6 months later they'll be fine with it. We do have a question in the chat about AMC. I don't think it's coming back just because they renovated the thing over at the Garden Walk, and I think AMC will probably stay there, assuming that they're still AMC and not Amazon. They are, I think, in talks to be purchased by Amazon, if I read correctly. So I don't have any great predictions for what's going to happen. I do think that's a fantastic building, that something needs to happen there. And it'll be interesting to see 2 years, 5 years down the line, what does end up happening there. And the real challenge, I think, for all of these leaders going forward is, as we're coming out of this really crazy time, is there's just not the amount of capital that was there 6 months ago. And, they're losing a lot of money every day. So it's not like they can spend as much money right away either. And so a lot of these people, it's going to be about shoring up the revenue that they can have with what they've got, and then being smart with that revenue, and hopefully putting it into some new things. And that's where we're going to see what Bob Chapek is also like as a CEO. Is he a guy that takes things safely and it's one step at a time, or is he oh, we've got an opportunity here and dives in head first and goes after it, or is it somewhere in the middle? And that will be very interesting to see as things move forward as well. They also have Kareem Daniel as we move along. That's now the president of Consumer Products, Games, and Publishing. I think he's picked for the right reason. I can't tell you a whole lot about this or about him, but I think everything I'm reading is he will do just fine in this role. We probably won't see a ton from him personally, but we will actually experience and see the things that he works on. My hunch is he'll be behind the scene guy, and that'll be fine, and probably not as exciting as Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and the chairman roles for Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products. You've got Thomas Maslum, I don't know how to say his name, that's now president of Disney Signature Experiences. And that's interesting to me because he was the vice president of resort transportation operations at Walt Disney World Resort. And it'll be interesting to see how he takes what he did at the Walt Disney World and the parks and resorts and goes to these really specific experiences as they move forward. And a lot of the other people that we've known about for years, whether it's Michael Colglazier or let's see who else we got here. Michael Colglazier is staying where he was. George Kalgridis is staying where he is as of 6 months, a year ago, which is president of segment development and enrichment. Kevin Lansbury is executive vice president of chief financial officer. And Bob Weiss continues on as president of Walt Disney Imagineering. There's some other names that you can see in the article that we did about this as well. But the big picture of this is, I think, as we're looking at this, is Bob Chapek has now picked his team and he's deployed them. Mm-hmm. He's decided these are the people I'm going to work with. These are the people I'm going to deploy as I'm building up my team. And it will be very interesting to see how that works out for him moving forward. And it could be, as we look back at Disney history years down the road, that the decisions he made today or leading up to today were as influential and important as anything else he's ever done. Mm-hmm. And because one of the most important things you can do as a leader is pick the people that you have on your team. And so I personally think he's made some very good calls where it comes to putting people in different spots, whether it's Josh D'Amaro or Rebecca Campbell. Like, those are things, as I'm reading their bios and as I've known some of them a little bit, they seem to make sense to me. And I think they're good choices. And it actually makes me more excited about Bob Chapek as our new Disney CEO. And I think that's probably a really good thing. And it'll be really interesting to me to see what happens in the coming months and then years as they move out of this weird pandemic time and into what Disney's going to look like during the Chapek era. What do you think, Katie?
I was thinking there's a phrase we throw around at work a lot, and it is aces in their places. Everyone is good at something.
Yeah.
You just have to find what that person is good at. Just because one person is really good at one thing does not mean that everyone is. And I think that Bob Chapek has really gotten a good feel for everyone, and he has put his aces in their places. There's a lot of heavy hitters on his team, and he put them, I think, where he thinks and where I agree with they're going to be the most successful. And I think that that's, especially right now, is what Disney needs the most. Is they need the most effective people where they can make things happen. So,
and it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. So I think that's all I've got. How about you?
That's all I've got.
All right. So if you've enjoyed this, and hopefully you did because you're still watching, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'd love to share all of our other videos coming up in the near future with you. One of those would be our live stream tomorrow night at 9:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is Geeks Corner. And we have that every Tuesday night, and you will not want to miss it. We've got some very special guests that are going to be on the show tomorrow night that we're very excited about. And then we've also got I think it's 2008 Pirates of the Caribbean video that I'm working on that I will have up very soon as well. Along with some other things like Disney Reporter later in the week. We've got other Daps Magic Live coming up where we continue as we move over to Walt Disney World to determine what the very best extinct Disney attraction is. So make sure you don't miss that as well. And then also subscribe to us on dapsmagic.com so you don't miss any of the Disney or geek news that we post daily, multiple times a day. We work very hard to make the very best content we possibly can, even though all of us have day jobs as well.
That's true.
It's always this random text of like,
who's
who
not
can
working?
Do this? Roger, thank you. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed our Daps Magic Live tonight. We hope that you have a fantastic evening, and we hope that very soon, when it's safe, we'll see you in the parks.